What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Paddock, and today we are going to talk about developing a jazz style. For this tutorial, I'm going to switch things up a little bit. In my sax school, the Scott Paddock Sax School, I just launched an entire section dedicated to developing a jazz style. And in the sax school, I have several different exercises, and in each of those exercises, I teach a couple unwritten rules of jazz articulation. So I teach the whole thing in a step-by-step process. For this tutorial, I'm going to use a portion of the first lesson and teach you the first two rules. And you're going to be able to hear that just by incorporating these first two rules, the unwritten rules of jazz articulation, that you can completely transform the way everything you play sounds. So if after watching this tutorial, you're interested in digging deeper into developing a jazz style, check out the Scott Paddock Sax School. I will put a link in the description. Let's get started with the tutorial. Let's dive into this first phrase. We're going to do it line by line, but I'm going to break it down articulation by articulation. So take a listen to the first line. Sounds cool, right? The first thing that you're going to hear, and this has nothing to do with the articulation, is the way I'm swinging this. I'm doing a really hard swing. Like this has like a nice little shuffle groove to me. The tempo is 1/16. It's boom, ba-chaka, boom, ba-chaka, boom, ba-chaka. So when I'm playing over that, I want to swing it a bit harder. Now when I say swing a bit harder, I just mean make everything a little bit more pronounced. So by really digging into that medium swing style, it's going to make everything sound a lot better. Now before we talk about specific articulations, I'm going to play this first line without doing any of the articulation things that we're going to talk about, and listen to how different it sounds. Still swinging the eighth notes, but it lost a whole bunch of style because all of the notes were equal value. When we're talking about style and articulation, we're making some notes more important than other notes, and that's what gives the music forward motion. So let's take a look at this first measure. The very first rule that we are going to do is when you have a quarter note, we're going to dop it. Marcato, dop it. So we want it to be short and fat. So on beat 2 where we have that quarter note G, if we play that short and fat, it's going to make the line sound a lot better. As opposed to when I play it like that without the dop, it loses a lot of energy. Now something else that you're going to realize as we go through this is I call articulations by what they sound like. So a marcato to me sounds like a dop. So when I say dop the dop or dop the quarter note, that means play it as a short fat note. So if you look at the A on the and of 3, that is a quarter note that is on the and of the beat. When we have a quarter note on the and of the beat, the general rule is to accent it. So the difference between an accent and a dop is a dop shortens the note and makes it fat, and an accent just hits it harder, but it's full value. So take a listen to this first measure. So the G is dopped and the A is accented but held full value. So your first two rules, and we're going to go over this a lot in this tune, is dop your quarter notes that land on the beat and accent your quarter notes that land on the and. If you look at the second measure, they're just swing eighth notes, so we're just going to do a hard swing on it. And then we have the third measure, and that very first note is a quarter note. It's an A on beat 1, and when we have a quarter note on the beat, we are going to dop it. So dop, dop. You're going to hear me say dop a lot. Later on in that measure, we have a D on the and of 3 and a G on the and of 4, and they're both quarter notes. So we have quarter notes on the and, we are going to accent them. So we're not going to dop them, we're going to accent them. When we bring out that articulation, it makes the line sound really good. If we don't do that articulation, it's a whole different song. Now, when we're doing the dynamics with this stuff, we're basically just going to follow the line and lean into the dops. So your dops are going to be your goal notes a lot of times, and the lines are going up and down. So as they go up, you want to get a little bit louder, and as they go down, you want to get a little bit softer. So take a listen to how we transformed this first line just by adding some dops and accents and some hard swing. Now, you could hear in measure 3, that D on the end of 3, I kind of dopped it a little bit more than I accented it. So this is what I was talking about in the beginning, where I said sometimes you're going to change the way you play a note depending on what's going on around it. For that note, we could either accent it, like I did when I taught you how to play this line, or we could do a little dop on it. And the reason for that is because there is an accented note right after it. So if we do the dop and do the accent, it's just going to give you more texture, but you could also accent both. So this is where you kind of have some options when it comes to articulation. There is no 100% set rule. So with this, you could accent both notes, or you could dop the first one and accent the second. So this is what it would sound like with a dop and accent. And this is what it would sound like with 2 accents. Now, because we're just learning these rules, I'm going to go ahead and play it as an accent all of the time just because we're learning that rule. But if you like the way it sounds as a dop, feel free to play it as a dop and then accent that second quarter note or 2 eighth notes that land on the and. So let's play this first line together. 1, 2, ready. Now let's take a look at this second line. We start off, as you can hear, just by adding in these 2 unwritten rules of jazz articulation, you can completely transform the way everything you play sounds, just by dopping a quarter note that is on the beat and putting an accent on quarter notes that are on the and. And of course, that is just with 2 rules. So I call them the unwritten rules of jazz articulation because they're not really written down anywhere, and you just kind of pick these up as you listen to jazz musicians play music, play solos, so on and so forth. But I've developed a step-by-step process of teaching this that makes it really easy to incorporate it into what you play, and the more you work on it, the more it is going to just be the way you sound because that's the way you hear music. So if you're interested in diving deeper into this topic, check out the Scott Paddock Sax School.